Is it all right if I get started? All right, good afternoon. I'm calling the meeting of the Governance Committee to order. It is Monday, December 15th, and it is 2:31 p.m. Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Good afternoon. Clark?
Here.
Dunphy?
Here.
Hurdle Guinea?
I'm here.
Ryan?
Here.
Koyama Lane?
Here. Craig, will you please read the statement of conduct?
Good afternoon. Welcome to this meeting of the Governance Committee. To testify before this committee in person or virtually, you must sign up in advance on the committee agenda at www.portland.gov/council/agenda/governance-committee or by calling 311. Information on engaging with the committee can be found at this link. Registration for virtual testimony closes 1 hour prior to the meeting. In-person testifiers must sign up before the agenda item is heard. If public testimony will be taken on an item, individuals may testify for 3 minutes unless the chair states otherwise. Your microphone will be muted when your time is over. The chair preserves order. Disruptive conduct such as shouting, refusing to conclude your testimony when your time is up, or interrupting others' testimony or committee deliberations will not be allowed. If you cause a disruption, a warning will be given. Further disruption will result in ejection from the meeting. Anyone who fails to leave once ejected is subject to arrest for trespass. Additionally, the committee may take a short recess and reconvene virtually. Your testimony should address the matter being considered. When testifying, state your name for the record. If you are a lobbyist, identify the organization you represent. Virtual testifiers should unmute themselves when the clerk calls your name. Thank you.
Thank you so much. In today's meeting, the Governance Committee will hear general public testimony on governance issues, continue considering an ordinance adding code related to appointed boards, commissions, and committees that was first heard last week, and consider a resolution establishing a council governance handbook to collect policies, procedures, and current practices to support council's operations and improve transparency. And Vice Chair Ryan and I do not have any specific announcements, and we do have quite a few amendments and things ahead of us, so we're going to jump right into item number 1. Clerk, can you please read the first item?
Item 1, public comment on governance issues. We have 3 folks signed up to testify. First up, Jose Gamero Georgeson, Steph Ruth, Terry Harris. Steph will join us online shortly.
Thank you, all of you, for being with us today.
You can begin when you're ready.
Hi everyone, Jose Gamero Georgeson, he male pronouns, District 1. I've been here before. You know me from GTAC, and you know that I am a fan of all things governance, and I truly believe that this kind of work makes government more accessible for everyone. Even the handbook you're working on today will someday make someone who doesn't know if they want to run for city council learn a little bit about how city council operates. So that's why it's important to have all these things in practice. And I just came because I've seen the amount of work that's gone into the appointed bodies and commissions projects, the advisory body project, Julie Meyer, Ocean, Amanda. I've seen the amount of work, and I know that this is a project that has been kind of on the city's radar for a very long time. Something we start and don't finish, and then have to start all over again from the beginning. So I'm very much looking forward to getting across the finish line this time. It may not be, even if it's not perfect, it's easier to change something once it's in code than to just have it not be there anymore and then have to start over again in a couple of years down the line when someone inevitably says, why haven't we done anything with this mess of advisory bodies? So I'm here to let us know this is something that we really need, we have needed, and we need to, no matter what, get this past the finish line. But most of all, I want to thank the work that Julie and her team have done, because it's an incredible work. And then also regarding the handbook, I can't wait to see that come into practice as well. I know the handbook is difficult because the norms are just starting for this form of government. but getting something and having it evolve over time is going to make things work better and easier as you continue to do your work. So I look forward to seeing that too. And I can't wait for the strategic plan conversation as well. You can tell I like these kinds of things. Mainly, I'm here to appreciate the work you've been doing, the work everyone's been doing. And I hope you all get it out of committee, get it passed at council so that we can keep doing this good work. Thank you.
Thank you.
Steph, you can unmute when you're ready.
Thank you, everyone. It's so wonderful to go after someone so smart and articulate as Jose. So I could just say, endorse. Chair Koyama Lane, Vice Chair Ryan, members of the committee. Hello, my name for the record is Steph Rouse, she, they, and I have had the honor of serving on many advisory bodies over the years and currently have the honor of serving as chair of the Portland Planning Commission, although I'm here in a personal capacity, and just want to echo, I'm here to echo everything that Jose said, just deeply appreciative of the work of Julia Meyer, Amanda Garcia Snell, Ocean Yasso. This is a lot of work, but it is such critical work in building the trust of Portlanders in government by being part of government and co-creating policies that help our entire city move forward. And one of the true non-renewable resource that any of us have is the resource of time. And what this what the appointment bodies, commissions, and committees, I'm getting that wrong, code work is really a gift to ensuring that people's time is being valued. I also just really appreciate having worked with Julia, Amanda, and Ocean many times in past, that I really appreciate their direct communication. And I hold two principles: that clear is kind, and also don't surprise your friends. And I feel like those two things are really embodied in the final project and the work before you. So thank you for being on the governance committee. Thanks to everyone who engaged in this final project and in this code work. Go team.
Thank you, Steph. Thank you so much.
Hi, I'm Terry Harris. I'm pleased to be joined by other people here today, especially good friends both, and our GTAC showing up on the last governance committee meeting of the year. But anyway, I concur with all of their thanks and appreciation for the advisory body's teams. Also, I'm going to say thanks to Councillor Dunphy's team, who was grinding through language, and I deeply appreciate their attention to that. And it's that's a good team there too. But I'm not going to talk about that. I'm going to talk about what might be coming down the road, and I talked about it last time, having to do with oversight and accountability things. I saw posted online a proposal for an accountability oversight hearing on the housing fiasco, if you want to call it that. I'm encouraged by that. I think the proposal that I saw is actually firm, it's well structured, it's a model that's used many places. It's non-nuclear, and I think as the governance norms get set, this is a really important moment. And this is something that's not in the governance handbook now, but should be in the handbook in the future. So I encourage you, as you discuss that, because there's the substance to the oversight, but in the governance sense, the method for doing that oversight is really sound. And I want to just put that out there, that it's a good idea, it's a good way to do things, and I hope you can work with it. And that's really all I've got to say. I might have to leave a little early tonight, but thanks for all you're doing.
That concludes testimony.
Thank you so much. Clerk, will you please read the next item?
Item 2, add appointed boards, commissions, and committees code.
Thank you. So we are continuing this item from last week's agenda. This is the ordinance to add sections of city code on boards, commissions, and committees. Want to welcome back Amanda, Julia, and Sarah, who have all been working hard on this project. And during last week's meeting, we opened the amendment proposed from Councillor Canal to add an implementation plan work session requirement. And so as we move into discussion, I'd like to invite Councillor Canal and give you the opportunity, if you'd like to come to the dais and provide any opening comments. I know you talked about it before, but is there anything else you wanted to add?
Thanks. For the record, Samir Kanal, City Councilor from District 2. I think I might be better saved for if there's a conversation around the amendments today, and I want to make sure that the staff who are on this are able to speak to those too. Is that all right, Madam Chair?
Absolutely. And the amendment has been pre-filed and everything, so do we need to do anything to continue discussion?
No, so we opened the amendment before we continued the item in the last meeting, so it's currently in discussion.
Okay. So colleagues, we are opening discussion on Canal's amendment, which is also posted on eCouncil. I do have a question to one of our city attorneys, if there are any concerns around this amendment or anything that we need to consider from your perspective.
Good afternoon. I'm Sarah Ames, Deputy City Attorney. I've been advising this project. There are no legal concerns about Councillor Canal's amendment.
All right, I don't see any hands in the queue, so we ready to vote?
Clark,
Aye.
Dunphy,
Aye.
Pirtle-Guinea,
I'm sorry, I'm just finishing pulling things up here. I was a little bit behind. I'm making sure I'm looking at the right version. Okay.
Yeah.
Aye.
Ryan,
Aye.
Kuyama Lane.
Aye.
And with 5 ayes, the motion carries. The amendment is accepted.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Dunphy, I see that you've pre-filed a few amendments. I would entertain a motion to consider these amendments.
Great.
So,
So these are, I have 7 different amendments. Some are less controversial and some are more controversial, and some I'd like to be able to discuss them. So how would you like me to, would you like me to walk through them, or do you want me to move them? What would be best right now?
Well, first, we need to make sure we have a second, right?
Well,
I think there are several 7 different
Yeah.
amendments, so I think if we consider them individually, can move and second each one.
that'd be my preferred if we could. And I'd like to just briefly go through all 7 of them. My intention is to bundle them, so we don't have 7 different votes. My intention right now is to bundle them in that Dunphy 1, 3, and 7 will come forward as a package. Dunphy 5 will come separately, and Dunphy 2, 4, and 6 will come as a package.
That sounds great. Councillor Dunphy, go ahead and share with us your amendments and your rationale.
Great, thank you. First, before I start, I do want to thank the staff who have done an amazing amount of work on this, and have also worked closely with my team to come and let me futz and make their jobs harder in the closing weeks. I really appreciate the work that's going into this. And as I said in the last time we heard about this, I'm really eager to see this work come to a finale, because my last tour of duty in this building, this work was starting to get done, and then Nick Fish had the audacity to die, and then it sort of stopped. So I'm excited to see it finally get finished. This is really important. The broad mentality for my amendments, as I said, there's 7 separate amendments trying to build on the good work that is already on the page, but philosophically, I believe that city code is the public-facing front page of our work, right? That in terms of our governing authority, city code is where the public can go to understand what it is that is their rights, what are the laws, what is the job of the city council, how are these things working? And in my opinion, that means it needs to be as straightforward to a plain reading. This seems particularly important when it comes to public participation chapters. We are inviting, at one point we had over 300 different boards and commissions and blue ribbon and all these different things. It's hundreds and hundreds of public members who don't necessarily understand how the city runs, what their responsibilities are, what their protections are. And I think that this section of code needs to be as clear to the average reader as possible. My amendments focus on clarity, consistency, plain language, and making sure that we are clear about who is on first in terms of authority and decision-making points. And we have a special focus on information sharing to the public on the makeup and membership of these different advisory bodies. Council has one process. The administration doesn't necessarily have to follow the same. The mayor has a different process, but information sharing is really important. Additionally, council has our council ops team to focus on style. The administration does not have that same. So this is an opportunity to move forward with a shared, unified style that is something that broadly I want to see us do. My amendments focus on clarifying the existing charter and code authority, the different roles that the council and the city and the mayor have, and emphasizing mayoral authority in certain areas and council authority in others, and talking about the code's supremacy over the administrative rule authority. So my 7 amendments, as I said, which are on this document here, I'm just going to go through them one at a time real quick. And actually what I will do for the purposes of introducing these, I'm going to read amendments 1, 3, and 7, and then I will read Amendment 5, and then 2, 4, and 6. So Dunphy Amendment 1 is around definitions. And again, this is in the document that is pre-filed for you. And actually, Ava, would you come on up? And I don't know if Eben is in here, but my team are the best nerds in the building, and I'm excited for them to help us with this. And also worth mentioning, we also worked directly with Terry Harris to reflect a lot of his specific concerns that he brought to us last week. But Dunphy Amendment 1 is around definitions section. This amendment moves the definition of an ABC into the definitions section, and it improves clarity by removing inaccurate and redundant language that states that members are appointed by, quote, the city, which is not the case. These edits also align with the chapter with the prevailing style used throughout city code. Functionally, what Amendment 1 does is it cuts the definition, or the section in the 3.40.030 under classifications and removes the language on defining what an ABC is and puts it into the definitions section. It also does some small tweaking to the language of enabling legislation and creating authority, just to make it consistent across the thing. Anything I missed on Dunphy 1? No, okay. Dunphy 3 is regarding public meeting law exemptions. This amendment removes the city administrator's rules from this section to be moved into its own section and eliminates the exemption of bodies subject to Oregon meeting laws, which is unnecessary because there's actually no conflict between the chapter requirements and the law. Including language about being subject to public meetings laws is mostly just redundant. And so Dunphy 3 strikes a part of the final sentence in application of the chapter and cuts subsection B out of 3.40.040. Anything to add there?
Yeah, no, I think that's fine. I think just to be clear, that section is cut and then it's moved to the end of the chapter at 3.40070. So we're making a separate section for the administrative rules.
Absolutely. And that is Dunphy Amendment 7, which is to create a 3.40.070 administrative rules explicitly stating that the city administrator may establish administrative rules for any ABC covered by this chapter and other applicable city code. These are relatively minor and the least controversial with city attorney and with staff, as I understand it. And I would like to move these 3 amendments forward for consideration.
Second.
Thank you. And love to discuss.
Councillor Clark.
Thank you, Councillor Dunphy. You went through this with a toothbrush.
Yes.
I think it's amazing. I read these as mostly housekeeping. There doesn't appear to be anything substantive necessarily.
It is absolutely my intention that these 3 are style over substance.
Okay.
Yeah, this is more about consistency across our code and readability.
Right, and the city attorney's office is fine with it. Right.
City attorney's office, specifically on 1, 3, and 5, the city attorney's office did request a friendly amendment to the amendment on Dunphy 5.
We're looking at 7, though.
7, thank you.
Dunphy 7.
Thank you.
And did you incorporate that, or?
So in 5, no. We'll come back to that. That is the next one I want to talk about separately with everybody. 1, 3, and 7 specifically, Sarah Ames had said no legal impact to comment on, and though she did have a note in Dunphy 7, I'm not sure what other applicable city code is, but otherwise do not advise against this amendment. So.
Council President.
Thank you. I just want to note that as we do this work, one of the benefits of having 12 of us is that we don't all have to dig in with a fine-tooth comb on everything. And I'm often stuck looking at the balance of how do we maintain consistency and how do we make sure that we move in the direction of more clarity in our law. And I really appreciate that when I know Councillor Dunphy is digging into something like this, I know we're going to move in a direction that strikes that balance. I have some questions about some of the later amendments, but feel very comfortable with these 3 and just wanted to take this moment before we get into the harder questions to appreciate the time that your team put into this.
Vice Chair Ryan.
Thank you. Councillor Dunphy, now you submitted these this morning, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. And so this is a little last minute for us. I've only had a little bit of time to look at it. And I think I want to have a bigger picture conversation because I think where we might see the world differently here is I'm comfortable with administrative rules. I think code should be clear but broad, and they should allow there to be some flexibility in terms of the reality of the moment. And so most policy in a lot of governments don't get to this matter of detail. And I know you mentioned code, and I understand code. Most of the public doesn't know anything about code.
Right.
Not the people who, of course, are here, because you're not like most of the public, you're really engaged. And so I think what I wanted to just have a longer conversation about is this council going to micro detail? That's your desire, because you don't want the mayor, whoever the mayor is, and the admin to have as much authority?
Oh, no, this is just moving the language from the application chapter to a separate section about administrative rules. right now, under Dunphy 3,
Yeah.
in the existing body, 3.40.040, subsection B, the language is 3.40.040 is the application of chapter. And under application of chapter, subsection B, it says the city administrator may establish administrative rules. What I'm proposing is to create a 3.40.070 at the end of the chapter that simply says, that is titled administrative rules, and moves that sentence into its separate section. Because the ability to make administrative rules is not the same thing as the applicability of code. And to have it in its own section makes it clearer and more consistent across the rest of it. So that was my intention, is to just call out that administrative rules are not actually about the creation of administrative rules is not about application of the chapter.
Okay. Well, it's just when you get 7 new amendments the day of, when we've been talking about something for months on end, it just came it's a little startling.
Sure.
And so I had to put that out there. And it's uncomfortable when you're in these positions and you're asked to pass something when you've had your day already scheduled and you haven't had a lot of time to dig through this. So this morning there was an exchange, and I just said, the 3 administrators weren't included, nor was the city attorney. And it turned out they didn't have the final results. So we figured that out. But have you had these conversations with Julia and Amanda, like in the last few months, or was it just all over the weekend? Or when?
No, we've been working on this for a while. Absolutely. I had previewed some of this at our last hearing, and my team has been, it certainly wasn't over the weekend.
Okay, I'm a little attached to hearing. Julie, I'm going to put you on the spot. I know I didn't tell you I was going to do this, but you've been working on this so diligently for months on end. And how do these change anything that you've been focused on when it comes to this big project, if you will? And thank you for leading this big project.
No, thank you, Councilor Ryan, for the question. For the record, Julia Meyer, she, her pronouns, project manager for the Advisory Bodies Enhancement Project. I think, and thank you to Councilor Dunphy and Evan and Ava for the toothbrush review of the code. I agree with Councilor Dunphy that 1, 3, and 7 are primarily stylistic. I don't have any issue with them. If this style is a preference for the committee, then I think it's okay.
And I should have said this was about the whole big thing for me. So I appreciate you splitting those 3 up. Yeah.
Okay, so you want me to go through each?
While we're here, can we do that?
Should I walk? You want me to walk?
Oh, wait, you haven't a chance to talk about that.
I haven't introduced them.
All right, so this is the stylistic one that seems to be just fine with everyone out there that's been working on this for months on end and has been cross-checking with legal the entire time. Okay. I have to do this in public because we haven't had a chance to do this before the meeting.
Yeah, no, and I think it makes sense to bring these 3 together because they are more stylistic.
And Ava, did you have other to add to that?
Yeah, and just to clarify, Ava Atwood, Policy Aide for Councilor Dunphy. First of all, I wanted to let Councilor Ryan know that we have been working very closely. I've actually been following this. I've read every single report. I've been following this from the beginning. We had a meeting with Julia, like a month or 2 ago, like when they had an initial draft, and then after they filed their final language, we then had like another meeting after that. We've been emailing. I was on the phone with Sarah several times this last week, and we went through literally together, all of us line by line. So what you're seeing is exactly pretty much what I'd already drafted. I had pre-drafted a lot of these things, and we went through them all together. And even like the decision-making body language and stuff like that was drafted with Sarah. So it's been kind of a collaborative process all along.
No, that's helpful. We've had meetings on it. This is the first I've heard of it, so I can't read mine.
No,
so
exactly.
it's important that you share.
We've been like
since
right
we
in the
can't read
weeds
mine.
together on this. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Council President?
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Ryan, I just wanted to note that by my reading of it, the move of the city administrator language to its own section in Dunphy 7, if anything, seemed to actually strengthen the authority that we were given to the city administrator, not in the words on the page, but in the way it conveys our intent by giving it a separate section like that.
Thank you.
If I can add a moment as well. For the record, Evan Hoffer, Policy Advisor for Councillor Dunphy. By adding the language at the end of that line, which says, and other applicable code, if there are in city code types of bodies that are not imagined in this chapter that we are about to pass, as we discussed later, there may be, that would mean that the city administrator could then adopt rules for those as well, rather than being only limited to those imagined in this code.
All right, not seeing any other hands in the queue. Diego, will you please call the roll on Dunphy 1, Dunphy 3, and Dunphy 7? It sounds like folks are comfortable with voting on those all together since they seem to be mostly stylistic.
Clark.
Aye.
Dunphy.
Aye.
Kirtle-Guiney.
Aye.
Ryan.
Aye.
Koyama Lane.
Aye.
With 5 ayes, the amendment passes.
Thank you, colleagues. Now we'll get into some areas that are a little bit more controversial, which I'm looking forward to it. We're going to start with Dunphy 5, which may be vaguely confusing out of order, but I'm going to try it anyway. This is specifically trying to attempt to, under the current charter, as we read it, as we have been told, we cannot require the mayor to follow certain requirements when it comes to creation of a new ABC, a new advisory board or commission. We can put our own requirements in, and as we had in this section, we have in the original draft, we have a portion that specifically says council must do these 4 things in order to create a new board. But we cannot compel the mayor to do that, even if we want that requirement. Dunphy 5 is an attempt to get the same level of transparency and accountability from the mayor as we have for ourselves without overstepping our charter enshrined authority. Specifically, this creates a new subsection C in 3.40.050, making that subsection ABC creation, sunset, reporting, and periodic review. And this requirement would be towards the city administrator to report to council within 30 days specific information about new ABCs that have been created. While we can't require it up front, we can ask on the back end, can you please get back to us with regard to names, qualifications, organizational affiliations, appointment terms, sunset dates, and deliver that to council within a set period of time. I will note that, and I certainly allow Sarah to say it herself specifically, but she had requested a friendly amendment to this. I want to turn it over to my team first to help us sort of flesh out the nuance if there's anything that I missed there.
Do you want me to speak to the amendment or just to ours, or do you just what?
To ours, and then also to the city attorney's.
Yeah. So actually, when I was speaking to Julia about this, we were talking about what the scope of this should be, and I said, what we're really trying to aim for is not just council understanding, you know, and like what's going on, but also for like public understanding, like daylighting. These are the bodies. We don't need to be creating an effort like a huge silo of information where we don't know what's going on and who's the actors. And so like the information originally we were going to have reported for establishment, any kind of big modification, and the end of a ABC, but we really thought instead of being onerous about this, we really just want to know when these things are created, when they're ending. And so the list of information is basically what we're seeing in under A, the creation of ABCs, those proposed, the purpose, the functions, the number of seats, like the basic framework of the ABC is being reported, as well as the individuals on the board. And I realized that we can't have always them staffed within 30 days. So there's an exception here. So if you can't get all this information 30 days within you getting that information, you can update council in the report. And so it's really, in the copy of the administrative rules, we didn't know at the time in drafting this how that was going to be. After speaking to Julia, she kind of said that they already have an idea of what their administrative rules are going to be. So if they're not going to be updated or changed, you don't have to continue to send redundant information. This is really just if there's anything new and anything important that the council and the public should know, we'd like that done in a timely manner. Not only does that help with information, but it also helps with us staying organized, right, and staying on top of this. What we don't want to see is a repeat of, you know, like, oh man, what do we have going on? It's just about timely tracking. And do you want to add anything to that? I can say Sarah's.
Sure.
Yeah.
I'd be happy to. Yes. So as we discussed earlier in code, the code proposal puts certain requirements on notification and information that must be shared when council creates an ABC. Because the mayor has independent charter authority to create ABCs on his own through executive action, we cannot legislate requirements in advance of that. However, we can require reporting after the fact, as we discussed. So what is here is saying, if the mayor creates one of these bodies independently through executive action, he should, after the fact, report on the same basics. The city attorney's amendments are proposing we might not know who's on these bodies within 30 days. And so therefore, we have some material at the bottom that says, all right, well, within 30 days of when you know who's on the body, you should let us know. That seems reasonable. The city attorney has also requested that number 4, requesting that a copy of the administrative rules be provided to council and the public may be redundant since those will be set in law. There is one issue here, which is that the mayor can delegate administrative rulemaking authority to certain bodies. So in the odd case that a body makes its own rules, which is technically legal, this may still be valuable. That also may be pedantry, and I think that we would entertain removing it if that's a strong feeling.
So that is Dunphy Amendment 5, which I would like to move separately from the remainder. I guess I said the next one will be 2, 4, and 6. So, but this as amendment on its own is pertaining strictly to a reporting requirement for the city administrator on the creation or significant alteration of any ABC, and it makes those reporting requirements identical to our own if we are going to create a committee on our own. Okay. And additionally, as I said, the city attorney asked for a friendly amendment. That language is present. That is that second section after subsection C4.
Okay. And was that officially making a motion?
And I would like to move this amendment.
Second.
Great. So we can open up the discussion to counselors, other counselors. Counselor Clark, go right ahead.
Okay, I just want to make sure I understand this. So the language, if ABC member appointments are not finalized, that's from the city attorney's office. And that's just to give them leeway if they don't know yet.
Absolutely. We know that there's recruitment issues. We know that
Sure.
falls on a holiday, whatever it's going to be. So 30 days within the body being actually assembled.
Okay, and C4 does seem, what?
Oh,
No,
What?
I'm sorry, just to clarify, that sentence is not from the city attorney's office.
oh, my bad.
It's okay. The city attorney's office did provide recommended language for the section reporting of ABCs. It is a single sentence to replace the entirety of the initial proposed amendment.
Do you want me to read
Okay,
that?
you lost me there.
Do we have that language?
So C4? You're talking about C4?
Yeah, so the actual language from the city attorney's office is, for all ABCs not created by the council, the city administrator will report to the council within 30 days of the establishment or abolishment of an ABC to include for all new ABCs, all information listed in section 340050A3, A through D, and the sunset date or renewal term if applicable.
And substantively, what this would do.
Wait, one
Sure, go
order. Do we have that? what I'm looking at?
That was emailed. It wasn't, was that emailed to everyone? Let's see.
I think so.
It does not look like it was emailed to everybody.
I will forward this email to everybody right now. Apologies.
So can you just highlight what the difference is, that what you took and what you didn't take from the city attorney?
Substantively, Counselor, this would remove number 2 and number 4, and it would remove the final paragraph. So the requirements for reporting would be all information listed in section 3.40, et cetera, and the ABC's sunset date or renewal term if applicable.
So that seems in line with just making things simpler to understand, no? The city attorney's reference to the existing.
It's basically less, it's just not knowing who's on the boards. That's the big difference there. We wouldn't have privy to knowing who's on the ABC. That would remove that language. Because A through D is about the number of seats. It's about if there's a sunset date, what the functions of the ABC are. But all of that is outlined in the initial proposal of an ABC. What our amendment did was to go a little deeper and would say, okay, we have the basic outline of this ABC. Well, who's on it? What are their roles? What are their organizational affiliations? If that's applicable, or are they a community member? Just like the basic bio line information. Nothing, not a non-inquisition, but just like a basic, like who's on this committee, and that is basically it. And we didn't really consider that to be particularly onerous, since that information would already be collected.
So that's the language in C2.
Right. For my amendment that I put forward, it creates parity between our requirements for ourselves, but also includes specifically who is going to be on this board. And I think that specifically understanding who is on a board in a public way is really important, rather than, in my read of it, the city attorney's request is certainly more condensed and really outlines the parameters of what the board should be comprised of, not who comprises the board.
Okay, so I think inquiring minds need to know who's on the board. I don't know that we need the administrative rules and other And I mean, if we're really that serious, you can go look them up yourself. But so I don't care if 4 is in there. If it can be extracted, fine. I think that if ABC member, giving them more time, that's great. But I do think inquiring minds need to know who these people are. So I'm supportive of this. If you want to take out 4, that's fine. I don't know how other people feel about knowing what the administrative rules are. But I think this looks pretty good.
For my personal preferences, and this body can take a different direction, I would like to have this body consider my amendment as submitted, which is a longer version than what the city attorney had put forward.
Okay, colleagues, we had until 3:30 for this item. We can stretch it and go until 3:45 and talk a little bit less about the handbook if folks are okay with that. But just keep in mind, we have 4 amendments ahead of us. Councillor Purtle-Guinea.
And I apologize, but I have 3 parts to this question. I really want to fully understand this. The first is for whoever did the initial drafting. I don't know if that was the staff before us or the attorney, but if in fact we are not able to require the information the way that it was originally drafted, I'm just wondering why that decision was made, because what Councillor Dunphy is laying out in terms of not being able to require these things on the front end makes sense to me, but I'm wondering what was missed that it was drafted that way originally, so we can understand what the trade-off is here. Because this was originally drafted in such a way that it sounds like from my colleague, put things in code that we don't, or at least that his office doesn't think we can actually enforce.
And would this be a question
that
for
correct?
Julia, Amanda, or for our
For
city
whoever drafted the original. I don't know if that was Julia or Amanda or the attorney's office.
The original came from Counselor Dunphy's office.
No, not the original language that was brought to us, not the amendment.
Counselor, the original language did not include any requirements on the mayor because those are not supported by charter. So this text is completely new.
Okay.
Yeah, the previous language had some references to the mayor
Yeah,
and
that's
their
what I
sole
was
discretion. It didn't have specific,
Okay,
yeah.
thank you. I was confused on that piece of it. So I want to note, and maybe I'm confused on this too, that it looks, Counselor Dunphy, like there's an incorrect notation here. It's your C1 says all information listed under subsection 3.40050A3, and I believe you mean A4.
Yes.
So I want to make sure we correct that if we're going to pass this so that we're referring to the right language.
I will have my team very quickly make sure that that is correct.
I'm seeing it as 3, aren't you?
Well, we have proposed an amendment that would make it 3 instead of 4.
Yeah.
Right.
But we've not considered that yet?
We have not considered that yet.
Okay.
So 3, which was 4, 3 would be the council may create an ABC only after determining the following through its enabling legislation.
Which Dunphy changes
This
that?
will be in Dunphy 4.
Okay, I have questions about Dunphy 4, so I'm a little concerned with the order of passing 5 if we haven't discussed 4.
Well, yeah,
But I want to, I have a meaty thing that I want to get to also.
Great.
First, if that's okay.
Yeah.
And that is that I assume, perhaps incorrectly, that new ABCs that are created by the mayor would, at least most of the time, still have appointees who are nominated by the mayor and confirmed by council. And I want to understand if that's correct or not, because if that's the case, then we don't actually need the new C2 here, because the mayor would not be able to appoint those individuals without our confirmation. And I worry that including C2 inadvertently undermines our authority to confirm nominees. And I would prefer that when we pass this, because I would like to pass this, though not until we decide if we're doing 4 or not.
Yeah.
I would like us to say that we get all of the information under subsection 3.40050A, either 3 or 4, and the sunset date and renewal information, and the administrative rules. And maybe actually we affirm here that nominees will be confirmed by council. But I worry that the language you have inadvertently takes authority away from council. And I'm not comfortable doing that.
Yeah, I don't know. Are there bodies that the mayor could create that does not have members that would be appointed by the city council?
Yes.
So perhaps we need to say where council does not confirm nominees, the names, qualifications, et cetera. Would that be a friendly change here? Okay.
And
That makes
just
sense.
as a procedural note, I want to note that Attorney Ames is at the table at the dais to provide any comment.
I'd love to give you the chance to defend your own comments.
Sarah Ames again. I did want to note that this code was developed in concert with the city attorney's office and lots of consultation back and forth with staff and with the code, the chair and vice chair of this committee and the mayor's office to make sure that we were hitting the right balance of what belongs in code, what can be in administrative rules, what fits within the designation of authority between the mayor and council. That was a central issue here. There was a great interest on all of the sponsors of this code to have uniformity across the board, but you cannot legislate that uniformity because there is the mayor has his independent authority under charter. And so this particular section was drafted to try to get to that uniformity and require, although you can't require before the mayor establishes an ABC, that he, I'm using he because currently we have a he, that he go through and lay out the mission and the sunset and all those things. But you can ask under the charter, the council has the authority to ask the city administrator for reports. And so that's how we kind of got to the intent of the council and the mayor in this code to make sure there is as much uniformity as possible. So Section 1, that's exactly where that came from, and that was drafted by the city attorney's office in concert with the sponsors and the staff. The ABC sunset data renewal term is also entirely within that same ballpark. The names, qualifications, organizational affiliates, I understand the intent is to make sure this is daylighted and that the public is aware. I think that there might be better ways for the council to encourage, through the ordinance to, encourage the city administrator to ensure that all ABCs have, transparent practices, including listing members on their website. That would be more accessible to the public, I believe, than a city administrator's report. Further, this is entirely, you have the authority to ask the administrator for whatever reports you like. This one felt a little bit tipping towards, it was unclear to me, is like every time the mayor makes a new appointment or, as delegated, the Bureau makes a new appointment to one of these advisory groups, do you need another report from the city administrator? Logistically, it seems like maybe more work and not achieving the purpose, which was the stated purpose. So those are just kind of more things for you to consider as a policy. They aren't a legal challenge. The one piece I did have questions about is the ABC's administrative rules. You are correct that the city administrator may delegate the rulemaking authority to bureau directors. However, that would still have to go through the administrative code that the city has passed, which would have a public review period. And so I'm not sure there is much to be served in terms of public accessibility or visibility or reporting to have it included in this particular report. I don't believe any ABC that is established by the mayor and not the council would have direct administrative rule authority. The Community Board for Police Accountability, for example, does have administrative rule authority, but that was set in code in keeping with their independence.
Thank you.
Just two minor points. Thank you so much. We did, on the matter of needing to resubmit information to council every time there's a change or a reappointment, as currently drafted, the reporting requirement only kicks in at the point of establishment or abolition of an entity, and not at modification or reappointment. That was in an earlier draft, but it is not here. It is possible in charter for the mayor to delegate administrative authority to a board or commission. I don't think that has been done in the current form of government, but it is a power that's enumerated in charter.
Council President, would you like to continue speaking to the amendment?
Just briefly with what I'm hearing, it seems to me like this section maybe needs to have the names qualifications piece taken out and elsewhere state that all members would be listed on the website. I don't know if that's the direction that the carrier of the amendment would want to go, but that seems to be part of what I'm hearing. I do wonder if it's worth reiterating somewhere in here that it is best practice where ABCs will be longstanding to have council confirm nominees from the mayor to their positions.
If I may, the code as it reads just is the limit of what we can require. We can require a report. We cannot require in code or otherwise for the city administrator to create a website. Should the city administrator want to create a website where he posts or whoever posts this information, that would still fulfill this requirement. We don't, you know what I mean? Like this is it's just making the information available within the time frame. And that's kind of up to their choice how they want to report the information. It doesn't have to be in the city administrator's report. Our preference, of course, would for it to be very public and accessible and like less onerous in general. But we do really feel like this information is very, very minimal to what is really should be publicly available. And the line number 4 about the administrative rules, it says if new rules have been adopted or existing rules have been modified since the last report. So once again, we're addressing if there is a big change. This is not a hard line, must repeat, repeat, repeat.
I want to clarify that I don't want anybody to create a new website. I was picking up on the suggestion that they be posted on the websites for the ABCs that exist. And I think we could legally say that membership of ABCs shall be posted publicly where other information about those ABCs is available, or something like that.
Yeah.
Vice Chair Ryan.
There was someone in front of me. So my question that I was going to ask is, there's got to be some sort of problem that you're trying to solve here, or something that's happened in the past. Like, what's going on? Because this seems really clean and clear before Friday when this was posted, and then over the weekend we have all this. So somebody tell me something that I'm not hearing.
Absolutely, Councilor Ryan. Say in a hypothetical, a purely hypothetical world, say that there was an issue over which the mayor desired to appoint an ex officio advisory body. When would council need to know that that existed? And when would council need to know who was on it? When would council need to know what its powers were and what it was expected to accomplish during the period of its embodiment? When would council need to know how long it existed for? Under the code as it came to us last week, the mayor would not need to notify this body of any of that information. What we're proposing here is within 30 days of appointing that, all of those things, term of service, what is to be accomplished, indeed who is on the body, would be required to be reported publicly.
So, Councilor Dunphy, you don't see there's a time when a mayor would need to create an ad hoc committee, perhaps a task force that has a limited duration? I mean, what kind of obstacle are we putting to the mayor who has to oversee all the administration?
We're putting in transparency as an obstacle for a future mayor in a hypothetical situation. This is about protecting our authority as a decision-making body, and we can only make decisions if we have good information. And if without this, we are held to a standard that the mayor is not held to. And the public I think the public deserves consistency, both in terms of how we are thinking about our work and how the mayor is thinking about the work. And honestly, I think briefing councilors by press release is often a little exhausting. And we've had a couple of instances of that happen fairly recently, including specifically an ex officio group that I am benefiting from. I'm participating in the mayor's ex officio group on the future of the Keller Auditorium. But that was announced to this body via press release. And I think that this body has a right to understand in a confined and or rather defined way what it is that we are seeing here, rather than leading it up to us to ask or to interpret.
This is a complicated conversation, and it's an important one. And we've been looking at these for 6 months. So why is it that this just came up of late?
Would you like, is that a question for Councilor Dunphy?
Yeah, I am, and I'm looking at the staff where we've had this conversation about making sure there's balance, making sure it's uniform. And you and I and others in this meeting have been assured that it was there. What I just heard from you sounded good. Of course, you want to vote yes on that, but something's not making sense here to me.
Councilor Dunphy, would you like to respond?
Sure. I mean, we had our first formal hearing on this last week. We had our first opportunity to see what the final language was. We've had iterative language. We've had an ability to give input. Julia and Amanda have been amazing about this. They've been transparent and clear about what the expectations are. They've come to this committee, but you can't amend something that isn't in final draft. And we were encouraging, we were meeting, we were understanding about where things were going as a body, but it wasn't only until last week that we could actually change something, because that was when we had something to react to.
Okay. Well, I'll just say by eliminating 2 and 4, I'm definitely supportive of that. I would like to hear more from the staff, the architects of this, legal, if this is something we'll regret. I just can't tell if we're adding more than we need to here. I thought we had the uniformity. I thought we had the transparency already in writing.
Vice Chair, is that a question for
Yeah, I mean, let's do
Julia,
this since
Amanda?
this just happened this morning, so.
Sarah?
I can take a start here, and Julia, Sarah, add. I think that if I'm understanding correctly, as we went through this process, we were sharing, our plan initially was to put some high-level policy pieces out there as possible code language, and then put details and more procedural pieces into the administrative rules. And that was how we were talking about this project as we were going forward. And it sounds like through that there was some interest in seeing a little more of that delineated, at least for the administrative side of the work, in the code document, if I'm capturing that correctly. So I think that's how we have arrived at this place. I don't know if you have other things to add.
No, thanks for asking, Councillor Ryan. I appreciate this amendment conceptually. This is probably my favorite of the long list. I think it is doing something here. And it's a little bit what Eben mentioned, but as someone who, spent 6 months trying to create an accurate inventory of existing ABCs at the city, we do have a real problem. I don't think it's a hypothetical problem. We have a real problem of keeping track of ABCs that we have. It's much easier to keep track on the council side because you create ABCs in public. And I think for a chief engagement officer to track those is not a challenge. I do think we have a challenge on the other side. I support that. I don't have a strong preference about the language. And I would say I've been working really closely with the city attorney's office for months on the language. And so I am more likely to kind of defer to their recommended language. But I think reporting on creation and abolishment in particular would be of service to this work.
Okay, that was really helpful. And final question, has the mayor himself been involved in this conversation over the weekend or this morning? Does he know about this change?
Amanda, would you want to respond?
Yeah, so he knows that we're bringing forward this work, and I think we've been working with Aisling on the initial drafts of the code. I don't know how much of the most recent changes have been discussed.
The ones filed this morning. Because partly what I've appreciated about my dialogue with all of you is that you have been working closely with the mayor's office. We are really working to make sure this has some uniformity. And so there hasn't been any feedback from the amendments that were filed this morning.
No. I don't know that.
Directly from the mayor.
Also, Councillor Ryan, I want to be clear. Like I said, I met with Julia over a month ago, maybe even 2 months ago, and there was an original, I think that you drafted, right? Original, very base language. And we that was presented to us originally, and I had gone through the week before our governance committee, because this wasn't filed. This language, the original language that we just amended, was not filed until at least late Thursday night, if not Friday. So I had gone through and edited all of that and made amendments to submit for the first governance meeting. And then when I went to go file it, I realized the language had completely changed. So then I had to go through, and it was because of that, our restrictions for when we can change an ordinance, I wasn't able to get it on the first committee. And then we had Julia contact me again when I said I was wanting to.
I understand. I'm sorry.
Yeah. And I did file it Friday. So it was, So
it was a fair question for me to ask, though, about the mayor's office, since it's very connected to the mayor.
And I know we have a lot of folks here on the dais, and so if you want to direct a question to someone specifically, I know it's a little confusing because we have a lot of folks up here. Was there anything else, Vice Chair?
No, I'm good.
Okay, thank you. I would like us to be able to make some space because Councillor Canal has taken time to come speak, and I would like to speak to Amendment Dunphy 5. And also I want to note that it sounds like there might be some wordsmithing of this and maybe even some other amendments that might be able to get more of us up here along to be able to go along with it. And so I do want to suggest that while counselors, this might be a place to discuss some of the intention, but if there are significant changes, it might be, the amendment might need to be code reviewed again before this comes before full council, so that might be necessary. Okay, Councillor Canal.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm in a somewhat awkward position because I actually really like the text, but most of the arguments for it I think are problematic, and I'm going to talk about that in a second. First, let me say I agree with every word Julia said about the need for it. This text refers to ABCs not created by council, which is actually where the bigger part of the issue is. Of the several, I mean, I think Councillor Dunphy mentioned a couple hundred in the past, that those are mostly created by the mayor's office or a part of the administration without a lot of daylight into them, into that process. And as a result, creating requirements around this side of it is addressing something that the code does not address currently, which is really important, and that's why I agree with Julia's comments. As it relates to the 2.4 in the final paragraph, I am fairly indifferent on that. I think the council president's suggestion for 2 is a good one. I think I probably agree closest with Councillor Clark on 4 on that as well. But I did want to take the opportunity to say this is actually very different. It's being presented as though this is the replacement text for what you're trying to cut in 2, 4, and 6, and it's actually different. And because that is related to when the mayor brings something to council, and this is related to when the mayor creates it unilaterally through their executive authority. And that's why they are different. One does not moot the other. And so I think you should do this and then not do the other, just to preview that argument. But because there's a interpretation here that's very much, we can't touch the executive. And if you read city code, most of it is actually defining, empowering, and or restraining the administration and what it can do, including the mayor. And so you see that across in chapter after chapter of city code. It's almost not even worth listing examples because it is the overwhelming majority of it. But having said that, this particular one, it does appear to cover it. The question that I had originally got answered, which was, do ABCs have their own rules? And it's almost always not, but it could. It seems to be the answer to that. And I think that's why I agreed with Councillor Clark on the not needing number 4. But just wanted to weigh in on that. I have a lot more on the 2, 4, 6 ones, but this I think will add something that the original drafts did not have, which is transparency into the maybe 70% of ABCs that are created by the mayor unilaterally.
Council President?
Thank you, Councillor. I'm wondering if we can get Councillor Canal to just clarify when he said do this but not the other, what he meant by the other.
Oh, sorry, 2, 4, and 6, that package. Because the way this was presented was we can't
I'm sorry,
do the.
wait, hold on. We should pass 5. We should not pass 2, 4, and 6.
Yeah, I'm referring to a particular part of it, not all of it for 2, 4, 6, but yes to passing 5. I think it does add something, as Julia said. My argument is exactly hers, so I won't repeat it.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Okay, I do not see any more hands in the queue. Clerk, will you please call the roll on Dunphy 5 as submitted with the 1 through 4, all of that still there? Is that correct?
Oh, they're all intact.
Yeah, at this point, I would like to, at this point, I would like to move this forward as written. If this body disagrees with it, I am happy to go back and wordsmith additionally and maybe possibly bring something forward for the full committee, but I feel pretty confident in the language we submitted at this moment and would ask that we vote.
Okay.
Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Clark.
With a little bit of ambivalence, aye.
Dunphy.
Aye.
Bertolini.
No for now, but I'd like to re-explore these topics.
Ryan.
No.
Kayama Lane.
No for now.
Motion, the amendment fails to pass with 3 nay votes and 2 aye votes.
Okay. Noting that we are over time already, would you like me to introduce 2, 4, and 6, the final package here? Or are you hoping to, or should we hold this over to another day?
The goal is that we can hopefully vote on this.
Yeah.
So go ahead and move forward. Do you think you can do it as quickly as
But as
possible?
quickly as possible. Thank you. All right, Dunphy 2 is incorporating several clarifying and technical amendments or adjustments. One, it adjusts headers for subsections A and B that uses the term city and replaces it with the terms mayor or councilor or council. That aligns with code language used in the charter. It removes some language that I believe is unnecessary without altering the meaning and makes the content more accessible. It reflects charters giving a new subsection that we've created reflects that charter gives council the sole authority to create boards and commissions that have powers beyond the advisory function, and replaces the term interagency with intergovernmental, which is a term, we don't use the term interagency in code elsewhere as near as we can tell, but we do have the term intergovernmental. That is, so Dunphy 2, what else, anything team that I should have immediately called out? Okay. Dunphy 4, it is on the chapter regarding creation of ABCs. It removes paragraph A sub 2, which because it seems redundant to A sub 1. It simplifies the language in A sub 3. It simplifies the language in the new A sub 2, and clarifies specifically the phrasing around sunsetting and when these are terminated. So most of this specifically is focused around removing parts that we think are redundant, a little bit of cleanup and style, and this 3.40.050 A sub 3, which clarifies and cleans that up a little bit. Looking at my team to see if I missed anything up. No? Okay. And Dunphy 6, this one is specifically to remove reference to a specific city bureau and instead replace it with references to the city administrator, to whom the Bureau of Human Resources is responsive. I am supportive of the movement to ensure that our members of our boards and commissions are treated as public officials and also given the same protections that are necessary in dealing with human resources issues, harassment, things like that we know has occurred on boards in the past. However, we think that it is more appropriate to call out in code the city administrator who delegates authority to the Bureau of Human Resources for these purposes versus calling out the Bureau of Human Resources directly. Again, I will look to my team to see if I left anything out, and would move these numbers 2, 4, and 6 as an amendment package. And would love a second if somebody be willing.
Technical question. Can I second and then immediately move to divide the package?
I don't see why not.
I'd like to second and divide the package into a Dunphy 2 and 6, followed by a Dunphy 4 separately. I think Dunphy 4 may have more controversial meat to it than 2 and 6.
I think that's right. Certainly.
So that would need to be either unanimous consent or you would need to move to divide and second and vote to divide. So if there's unanimous consent to divide, that.
Okay. Great. So for that purpose, then I'd like to talk about 2 and 6 first. And that is specifically the conversation around classifications, which again, for me, this is primarily cleanup and streamlining it to make it a little bit easier, with the exception that specifically under 2, for classification, there is a, I'm looking it up, sorry, 3.40.030, subsection B, 3, we are adding a new sub-line or a classification of bodies between ongoing and limited advisory bodies to also include a definition around decision-making bodies. And 6 was the HR components of it.
Okay. So we are now in discussion for 2 and 6.
Yes.
I only see Councillor Canal's hand raised. We'll do members of the committee first, and then we'll be happy to bring you in, Councillor Canal. Councillor Purtle-Guinea.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Dunphy, I found it helpful before for you to give us a sense of what the feedback was that you received on your amendments. I could ask our attorney to come up and give that directly, but if you have it available,
absolutely,
that might be faster if the chair is willing to go that route instead.
So for Dunphy 2, specifically the city attorney has requested an amendment regarding the phrasing and the definitions around decision-making body. The city attorney recommended council delegated body. That means an ABC established by council that exercises delegated authority to make decisions on behalf of the city that are quasi-judicial in nature, not ministerial. A council delegated body is not required by state or federal law and may serve an advisory purpose. And Sarah went on to saying that this more accurately captures what council's charter authority, the types of decisions that council may delegate or assign to an ABC, and covers bodies such as the Noise Review Board, which is assigned to decide variance applications. There may not be many bodies in this category. Many quasi-judicial bodies exercise functions required by state or federal law, but we've identified 1 or 2. And so, rather than a decision, the request was to call it a council delegated body instead of a decision-making body.
May I follow up?
Yes, you may follow up. Thanks for asking.
And that was something that you did not think was in line with the direction you wanted to go. So help me understand the decision to keep this language.
Councillor Dunphy?
I'll look to my team to help me parse this one out for me.
Well, I think there was initially there wasn't really even an acknowledgement at first of the difference in the types of boards per charter. So charter explicitly says that we as a council, or you as a council may make boards and commissions, and you may delegate your authorities to those boards and commissions, and that the mayor may make advisory bodies. And originally there was only advisory bodies listed in these definitions. So we were specifically talking about something like the Noise Review Board, where they were misclassified as an advisory body created by council. They're not required by law per se, other than they do make decisions. And so on Thursday, when Sarah and I were discussing language about this particular type of body, she had originally recommended decision-making body. That was her original language. We wrote the line together. And I think what this new amendment that she's proposing is is limiting in the fact that it really clearly defines it's only quasi-judicial. We may never make a legislative body that makes decisions legislatively, but it still is technically in your chartered powers. So we wanted to just be specific to that, right? And not extra limiting. And also, she mentions not ministerial, like the text not ministerial. We had to look that up, to be quite honest. But that's basically saying, once again, that we're not making administrative decisions.
I just want to make sure that our city attorney, Sarah Ames, has a chance to speak for herself and provide her own comment.
Thank you. Yes, I had a long conversation about, okay, well, there is this, and we really appreciate the close review by Councillor Dunphy and Mr. Harris, because it did call our attention to there might be this tiny sliver of the current, ABCs that are not covered under the existing classification system. But we struggled with what to call it, and at the moment on that call at the last minute on Thursday night, we came up with decision-making, but on further review and a consultation with folks in my office who support these and understand how to appeal and do all, they know the legal background on these. There is a distinction in law between, now I gotta look at it because quasi-judicial and ministerial decisions and how they can be appealed. I didn't come up with ministerial. This is a term of art in the law. And so I appreciate that, it's not well understood, but it is a legal term that has meaning. And then further, there are a number of other in charter, as other, decision-making bodies that have been established by council in the past. And so decision-making didn't really capture this particular slice that the city has. So, that's why, and again, it was just in reaction to, we had these long conversations last week. We saw the final amendments, and which reflected some of our advice, but not all of it. And we had, tortured conversations. So, this was late breaking, as you can probably see from the email that Councilor Dunphy forwarded you. This was, last minute advice from us about how to make the adjustment. But I do stand by that particular adjustment as being important and based in the actual charter language and in, but it fills a gap that was identified.
Please.
If I may, thank you so much. Absolutely, there was a list, an enumeration of types of boards and commissions that could be created under the sole authority of the city. It included only advisory bodies. Charter makes clear that council may create bodies that have power that is greater than advisory. As such, something needed to be included. We looked to the Public Meetings Law, Oregon Administrative Rules, which gives us language for types of governing bodies, one of which is decision-making bodies, so that makes sense, is where we went to. A body that has greater than advisory power under the city charter, which is section 2-104, council can give quasi-judicial powers, can delegate quasi-judicial powers to such a body, and the mayor can delegate administrative powers to such a body. As such, as of this time, it still makes sense to us to say there's kinds of bodies that council can create that can have greater powers and not super define it. But these are conversations that, reasonable people can have.
I would also say, just in response, it is not something I have explored or can say authoritatively, but I would be very surprised if charter allows you to delegate your legislative authorities to pass code or other legislative duties. That seems squarely within the council's authority.
It certainly does not.
Councilor Clark?
Okay, phew. I feel like we're slicing and dicing this language, and I'm not really sure where to go with it. I was thinking a council delegated decision-making body might be okay, but I think I hear you saying, Sarah, that that's not a good idea.
No, I think a council delegated decision-making body would be okay. It gets long, but that's fine. It is. Yeah, you could do a mashup, I think.
Councilor Dunphy, how do you feel about that, a council delegated decision-making body?
Go ahead, Councilor Dunphy.
Thank you. I would accept that as a friendly addition.
And can I just ask one more question? Does that include then, that includes quasi-judicial? Is that what we're talking about? Okay. Thanks.
Vice Chair Ryan?
Well, most of my questions have been answered, so I'm actually at a point where I'm getting confused on where we are, what we're voting on. I hear what you've all been saying, that you got the final printout on Friday morning and you could only respond with your corrections after that, and so that's why we got them this morning. That said, this has been a really heavy lift this morning, and this has taken up almost the agenda of this meeting. And I'm starting to just get at a place where I want this to go away, but I really want to salute Julia Meyer for all your work. So that's probably why I'm leaning in so much, because I've been in so many conversations on this, and I know that others have as well. So it's just the lack of transparency at the last minute, I think, is hard right now. I wish this feels more like a first reading at this point. And I don't want that to be the case, because I'm looking at people that have been working on this for a long time where this is their final meeting. So that's reality of what I'm experiencing at the moment. When we've been working so closely with the upstairs on the 3rd floor, and then there's moments here where it feels like the experiences we're not having time to do that. And I feel like we're putting a lot of pressure on the city attorney and the staff to give us their opinions. It's kind of awkward because I don't think anyone means any harm here. You're just trying to make everything transparent, which I'm a big advocate for. So that's my way of saying if I vote no, it's because I've learned in my 5+ years doing this that when in doubt, vote no, if you haven't had a chance to really sit through it and ask all the questions that are needed. So I just wanted to make that clear because I could be the lone dissenter. Thanks.
Thank you, Vice Chair Ryan. We can go to Councillor Dunphy, and then if no other members of our committee, and then Councillor Purtle-Guinea, and then Councillor Canal would also like to speak to this package of amendments 2 and 6.
I will just say that, again, we filed these on Friday, 4 days after the initial hearing on this. This isn't a second reading, this is a second hearing. Committees are where the work is supposed to be done. We are under no obligation to get this done today. I am not a checkbox. I am not a rubber stamp. I do not simply accept something that because the process was good, the product must also be untouchable. And I'm sorry that it's taking time. I do my homework over the weekends. I read an enormous amount of documentation over the weekends. And I don't apologize for this taking up time. We have to get this right. This is literally what our jobs are. We have to get the details of this done. This matters. This is what is important. And this is part of the reason why we are spending so much time as a body trying to respond to the existing code that is written like a camel. It is a horse written by committee. And it is this kind of work that we were hired to do. This is what I came here to do. And if not, why do we even bother having committees? So.
Councillor Purtle-Guinea, Council President.
Thank you, Chair.
Did you want to respond right now, Vice Chair Ryan? Or?
Oh, no, it's fine. We did receive these this morning. I also look at stuff over the weekend. I wasn't able to see all of these amendments over the weekend. And happy holidays. There are a few obligations on top of everything else. I don't want to do this back and forth. I agree with you. I'm not a rubber stamper either. I'm glad you're not as well. So I just, when I went home, when I studied this on Friday and I did additional outreach, I think it just was surprising this morning to get all of these amendments. That's all. A heads up would have been nice. Thanks.
Thank you. Council President, go ahead.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor, I'm wondering if we can have Councillor Clark reiterate the language that she had said about the heading for 3.
Councillor Clark?
That was just on number 3, decision-making body?
E3, yes.
Yeah, I just wanted to rename it Council Delegated Decision-Making Body.
I'm now wondering if Councillor Dunphy would accept as a friendly amendment, changing that to Councillor Delegated Decision-Making Body.
I thought he said yes.
I did.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd be glad to insert the 2 words, council delegated decision-making body.
I'd like to propose that that be what we vote on and that we actually do that as a friendly amendment.
Can I ask a point of clarification?
Yes.
I don't remember, did we move just two separately? Was that what we're working on, just 2?
2 and 6.
2 and 6.
That's also the HR rule,
Gotcha.
calling out HR versus calling out the city administrator.
I'm good.
I will note the city attorney has advised against 6. They do specifically want HR called out. I disagree.
Anything else, Council President?
We have an explanation on why.
The existing HRAR's Human Resources Administrative Rules were not established by the city administrator. They continue in effect. And also, I think the directive that the Bureau of Human Resources is responsible for enforcing those rules is pretty clear and direct, and I think is important. I don't see any reason not to specify the actual, as we had discussed with staff, they said, well, sometimes bureau names change, and I'm like, yes, and then we try to clean up the code and change the name. If we decide it'll be the people department or whatever, we'll make that change when it comes to it. But I think it is important to kind of really name who's responsible for enforcing them. I think that's helpful. And it also is a clearer message to the public, I think, and to members of these groups.
Thank you.
Councillor Knoll, I'd like to invite you up. I know you'd like to speak to amendments 2 and 6, and we've been cleared that we can go a few minutes over for governance today.
Thank you, and thank you for all the work on this. These 3 amendments, 2, 4, and 6, all combine some substantive things with some technical things, so they're a little hard to narrow down. I have no concern about 2. I'd ask you to divide them because I do have massive concerns with 6. But I did want to point out, while we're talking about 2, the way that you read 3.040.030A, ABC's "the city does not have sole authority to create, alter, or dissolve." The city's authority would include the mayor, the council, or both. And changing that to mayor or council, my read on that would mean that if there's something that the mayor or council and the council work together on, we've actually changed the meaning. Does that make sense? When it says ABC's "the mayor or council does not have sole authority to create." So if the mayor and council work together, neither has sole authority. And so I think that is actually a change that might have a meaning the way I read it, and might just need a little wordsmithing there. But other than that, no concerns. And I actually think 2 does a lot to improve the document as well. With relation to 6, in my experience serving as an advisory board liaison, and Councilor Ryan and I have talked about a particular example, as have Sarah and I, if you don't specify BHR, this entire paragraph is worthless. And the reason is BHR is the only one that has certain authorities under those administrative rules to do it. I have had to bring to council removing people for harassment from advisory boards. That is not something an advisory board liaison should have to do, because it should be done by BHR. And when I asked BHR who should be doing it, they said we should be doing it. That's what they told me in 2022 when I brought this up then. We actually created a work group under Ocean's authority, and the work group on this, the sort of previous version of this project, to talk about volunteer conduct specifically. It had a lot of people from 7 different bureaus taking parts in it, and the underlying commonality of everyone's experience is wanting BHR to do it. And not feeling comfortable or empowered as an individual staffer in a bureau to deal with harassment. And it does happen. The fact that there are 7 different bureaus working on this means that it happens more often than we'd all like to admit. And I really hope that this with BHR in it can help root that out, because we have other work to do to make sure that when someone is removed for conduct that's problematic, they're not immediately appointed by another bureau to another advisory group too. But we can't do that if it's not a single place that owns that responsibility, and BHR is the only one that can. So whatever else happens, I think 6 needs to continue to retain BHR in it. I don't have a problem with the addition of City Code 1.03, but the rest of it, I think, should be voted down.
Go ahead, Council President.
Thank you, Councillor. I have another friendly amendment question for my colleague, Councillor Dunphy, if that's all right with you. Councillor Dunphy, if we changed this Dunphy 7 to say established by the Bureau of Human Resources and the city administrator, because I hear your point that we need to elevate some of this work.
Dunphy 6.
Dunphy 6, I apologize. And then continue to have the strikeout at the end that you have, or maybe put it back in since we refer to BHR. I'm open to either. Would that meet what you are trying to do without the unintended consequences of removing BHR?
I'm actually, can I respond? Yeah.
Yes, go ahead. Thank you.
I am actually at this point comfortable just tabling Dunphy 6 and moving forward with a vote on Dunphy 2 and a vote on Dunphy 4. I think that there has been some compelling testimony and some compelling pushback, and I think that that is fine. And for the purposes of getting this done, I would like to table Dunphy 6, which I don't know how to do that systematically.
Refer it back to your office.
I'd like to refer Dunphy 6 back to my office.
And we had 2 and 6 coming together. Do we need to do anything else do we need to make a motion just for 2, or that's on the table right now?
I think if the original person who made the motion and second are okay with moving Dunphy 2, then, so that was moved by Councilor Dunphy and seconded by the council president.
Okay.
Is there any further discussion on Dunphy 2, colleagues?
Yeah, we're considering that with the friendly amendment.
With the friendly amendment. Diego, will you please call the roll on Dunphy 2?
Clark.
Aye.
Dunphy.
Aye.
Bertolini.
Aye.
Ryan.
Aye.
Koyama Lane.
Aye.
With 5 ayes, the amendment is approved.
Thank you.
We are now in discussion. We need a motion?
Yeah, I would like to move Dunphy 4, please.
I'll second as a courtesy. I'm not convinced on this one yet.
Fair enough. Appreciate it.
And now we can open up discussion on Dunphy 4. Councilor Canal, are you, oh, sorry, we'll come back to you. Vice Chair Ryan?
My first question is, you struck section 2, or under A, 2, and it says discretion as provided in Charter section 2-103. So why?
The line immediately before it says the council and the mayor have the authority to create, alter, or abolish ABCs as provided under Charter Section 2-103. And then -2 immediately says the mayor may create, alter, or abolish ABCs through independent executive action at the sole discretion as provided in Charter 2-103. I removed it because it feels duplicative. It already says that the mayor has the authority. It just doesn't call out executive action.
Yet it was accurate prior. Okay. And it was a discussion you had with the mayor's office?
No.
Well, we did when we were creating this.
Well, yeah.
Are you directing a question to Attorney Ames?
Yeah, sorry.
There was discussion about delineating and making clear that the mayor has independent authority and has discretion over the ones that the advisory boards or commissions that the mayor may establish. And so in this, it kind of says, you know, the first line is they both have powers under the charter. And then it says the mayor gets to do his or her own thing, basically. And then the rest of it discusses how council is going to do their thing. So I just thought that, you know, I mean, it may sound redundant. It elaborates and it says how the mayor is going to establish. And it's like, we're not going to tell the mayor how to establish. And then it goes on to talk about, I thought it was more clear for the public to understand the differences between the.
Same. Thank you. That's all.
Councilor Canal.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to speak to this part that was addressed earlier in terms of the authority. It's related to, I think most of this is good. There's 4 things that are mentioned in the points up at the top. 1, 2, and 4 are great. It's the sponsorship language is how it's portrayed. I don't think this is necessarily just a technical fix, the change to paragraph 4, which would be renumbered to 3. We require that a sponsor put in place information about their documents through the impact statement. We have different requirements for different types of documents. There's some things that have a real estate analysis, some things that don't. There are things that have a Prosper writes an analysis, and there are things that Prosper doesn't. Requiring this for the things that would eventually be created by council, because keep in mind the original text, it says propose the creation of an ABC by council. And I don't want to pit lawyers against each other here. So, but I've talked to 4 total attorneys about advisory boards over the years and since taking office as well. I do not see any legal concern around saying that if you're bringing the idea to council in the first place as the mayor, that we're allowed to require certain things. The clerk requires things of a sponsor as well. So because of that change, I think this dramatically would weaken the entire document to change what is currently paragraph 4 and would be renumbered to 3 in this. And that concerns me immensely. I don't have any concern with the rest of it. I actually think the rest of this amendment is quite good. But on the subject of paragraph 2, paragraph 1 doesn't say advisory and paragraph 2 does as well. And that I think is a notable difference as well. You're repeating the charter, but if the goal is that it's for clarity, there's no harm in leaving it in. I wouldn't vote either way based on that if I was on this committee, but I do think that the change to 4, which would be renumbered to 3, is really would weaken the document significantly. Thanks.
Go ahead, Council President.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Canal just stated far more succinctly than I would have been able to what my concern is with this amendment. Thank you. I agree wholeheartedly, and that is why I'm currently planning to be a no on this amendment.
With no other hands in the queue, we are ready for a vote, I believe. Diego, will you please call the roll on Dunphy 4?
Was that 4 or 6?
4.
It's 4. Oh, thank you. Clark? Dunphy?
Aye.
Kirtle-Guinea?
No.
Ryan?
No.
Koyama Lane?
No.
The amendment fails with 3 nay votes, 1 aye, and 1 absent vote.
Okay. And looks like we might be seeing Dunphy 6. That will hopefully come back to us. We can discuss at a full council if this passes.
Yeah, Dunphy 6 is off the table. Back to my office.
Okay. So now we are back to discussion on the underlying ordinance. Council President?
I'm sorry, I'm going to do this very quickly. I'd like to bring back the language in Dunphy 5, and I'd like to do so with a change that I am sending to my colleagues right now. And Councillor Koyama Lane, if you could send it to the appropriate staff for this meeting, that would be fantastic. I would remove 2 from, actually, I would start, because Dunphy 4 failed, with amending in sub 1 of the original Dunphy 5, where it says 3.40050A3 to A4, which I think is the relevant notation now. I would remove sub 2 from the original Dunphy 5, and I would add a C to this section, which would say members of ABCs will be listed where other information about ABCs are publicly available. That gets to the conversation that we were having around Dunphy 5 originally, I think as cleanly as possible.
Second.
And I'm looking to council operations to see if this is a significant change enough that this would need to go through code review, or if we can discuss this.
I think we need to defer to the clerk's office as the one who completes code review.
Right.
I believe so. It would have to go once more, but I can confirm that with you offline.
All right, I'm looking to my colleagues to see how you'd like to proceed.
Would you prefer that I bring this to full council, or are we comfortable discussing now with the understanding that it would need to, if adopted, be reviewed before it comes to full council for passage, and I would remove it if there were any issues in that review.
I apologize, Chair. We actually do not need to get it through code review once more.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for being flexible. Okay, so we now have an amended version of Dunphy 5 to discuss. And do we need to, then we have a motion and a seconder. Okay, do we need to discuss this any further?
Was there an email sent out, the new language?
I'm sorry, I just sent it via Teams. Do you prefer it via email, Counselor?
Yeah, that'd be nice.
Okay, let me do that right now. I was just trying to get it to you in the fastest way that I had here so you could see it.
While we're waiting, Attorney Ames, I'm not sure if you're able to follow all that and those changes. I'm wondering if you have any thoughts about this amended Dunphy 5.
As to the names, qualifications, and et cetera of the members, as discussed before, I think that that's a policy decision that you are free to make. And you have not changed the copy of the ABC's administrative rules. That is still in the current.
I did retain that.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I mean, you know, if any, I mean, just say if rules have been adopted or existing rules have been modified. So I suppose, you know, on the rare occasions where there might be, you know, it's kind of not going to come into play very often, but.
So am I hearing that you might suggest some more flexible language there?
If, I mean, you can just say if rules have been adopted or existing rules have been modified, I would take out new, but it's fine.
Counselor, I realize that there is an issue with what I sent to make this conform with the rest of the language. The final paragraph, if ABC member appointments are not finalized within 30 days of establishment, would need to be removed as well, since we don't actually refer to appointees in the top part, and I apologize for that oversight.
Yeah, will be listed where other.
Would you like to send out a new version?
Will do.
Julia Meyer, is there anything you'd like to add? No?
Oh, all right, thanks.
As amended, is there anyone on the executive side that wants to speak to their part of this? Or okay. So we are getting that updated language.
I have one quick question for Councilor Pertolini.
A follow-up, is that okay?
Yeah,
Okay.
President Pertolini. So earlier there was a lot of conversation about taking out 2 and 4. And now they're back in?
No. 2, hold on.
You sent this to me. 2 looks the same as the 2 that I thought we removed.
Yeah, so 2, it's hard to do the notations in here. The italics in red are removed. So I just resent this.
Oh, so don't get
the
into
additional
red,
paragraph.
get into italics, okay.
So 3 is removed in sub 1, that final 3 in the code notation, and replaced with the bold red 4. Sub 2 is removed in the red italics. We would need to renumber 3 and 4. The final sentence, if ABC member appointments are not finalized within 30 days of establishment, et cetera, in italics and red is removed. And the red bold C is added. Members of ABCs will be listed where other information about ABCs are publicly available.
You kept 4.
I did keep 4. I heard the concern from the administration, but also heard the arguments that it should be in there, and so I didn't want to touch that in trying what I had hoped would be a quick and easy change here.
Council President.
Thank you for your efforts. I like about half of them. Yeah.
Councilor Dunphy, go ahead.
Thank you. I just question for Sarah. You know, it says in here where other information about ABCs is publicly available. Is there a requirement that all ABCs have publicly available information?
There is not. that would be a subject for administrative rulemaking, and well within the city administrator's power. And I know that you have, I believe that there will be some coordinated effort to kind of show their hand before those are put out.
All right, not seeing any other hands in the queue. Diego, will you please call the roll on Dunphy / Guinea 5? I'm not sure what we want to call it. This newly amended. What do you want to call it?
I think that Councillor Dunphy is asking that it be Guinea 1, which is fine with me.
Guinea 1. Will you please call the roll?
Dunphy.
Aye.
Guinea.
Aye.
Ryan.
No.
Koyama Lane.
Aye.
With 3 ayes, 1 no, and 1 absent vote, the amendment is approved.
All right, we are now back to discussing the underlying ordinance. Is there any discussion? All right. Will the clerk please call the roll on the underlying ordinance?
We're voting now on the big thing.
I believe we need one final motion in a second.
All right, may I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Dunphy.
Aye.
Guinea.
I want to note here, and I'm sorry I didn't in discussion, that I have some concerns in the report. We're not codifying the report, so I feel comfortable moving this forward, but I think it's important to note that my vote does not say that I support everything in the report. Aye.
Ryan.
Yeah, I want to thank the staff for their hard work on this. I really appreciate the collaborative spirit and working with the different parts of our government throughout this process. I think some of the additions today were additive. I also think some could be problematic in the future. And I don't think I had enough time to go through all of those and have the same sort of thoughtful dialogue that I've been doing throughout this process. Therefore, I will be a no on this. Yeah.
Was that a no vote?
Correct.
Koyama Lane.
Thank you so much for all of your hard work, Amanda, Julia, Ocean, Sarah. I'm proud to vote aye.
With 3 ayes, 1 nay vote, and 1 absent, the motion carries, and the ordinance document number 2025-471 will move to full council with a due pass recommendation as amended.
Great. Clerk, will you please read our final item?
I just want to say I hope to vote yes when we get to full council, but I need more time to understand what just happened. Thanks.
Item 3, establish a Portland City Council governance handbook to collect policies, procedures, and current practices to support city operations and improve transparency.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. So we've talked a lot about the handbook. Thank you, everyone, for your patience. Thank you, everyone, for being here today. I truly believe it's important to start a document that has information that will grow and evolve over time that lives within council operations. And this is really about building a better democracy together, not just for our current council, but for future councilors who will come after us and also the public. And I believe that having policies and procedures and having those as accessible as possible is very important and are integral to making things democratic. So I will pass things over to Aubrey and Craig quickly for a maybe quick summary.
Thank you so much. Craig Cook, Council Policy Analyst for the record.
And Aubrey Chen, Senior Council Aide for the record.
All right, we will go through this very quickly. We've talked about this handbook many times. As you know, we have considered this a collaborative effort between members of the Governance Committee and this full council. Councilors have been invited to collaborate, and we've discussed this in committee several times. As you all know, the purpose and scope of this handbook is to be an informational and transparent guide for councilors, staff, and the public. It compiles guidance from existing policies, including Oregon laws, city charter, code, and other policies. It's a living document, and we intend that as practices and procedures evolve and are decided by council, they'll be added to the handbook. So again, we've talked about this previously, but topics covered include council adjacent and support offices, fundamentals of Portland's governance structure, how to draft and file various types of legislation, and the various types of meetings that you all participate in. And as I referenced previously, as you choose to pass new policies or procedures related to council governance, those will be included in the handbook. Council operations will update the handbook as you pass those procedures. It's important to note that the resolution before you today does not establish a cadence for reauthorization of the handbook. That would be at council's choosing. The goal is transparent, collaborative, and iterative process of co-creation. I think that was record time for a presentation to the committee. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Before we move into Q&A and deliberation, I'd like to propose a friendly amendment to Koyama Lane 1 to Exhibit A. We have a couple amendments recommended from the city attorney, our city attorney Robert Taylor. City Attorney Taylor, would you like to come to the dais and speak to these recommendations?
Oh, he's here.
Then there's another one with a second friendly amendment to Koyama Lane 2 Exhibit A. That amendment is to add a sentence clarifying that the section on council committee assignments will be revised to reflect committees as they change. Welcome. Thanks for being with us.
Yeah, thank you. It's great to be here. Robert Taylor, Portland City Attorney. Craig circulated this around and I made some comments and gave it back to him, and I really appreciate the suggestions and him incorporating the changes. The big one that I really wanted to talk about today was there's a section in the handbook that talks about binding city policies, non-binding city policies. And we do have a code provision, it's 1.07, that talks about binding city policies versus non-binding city policies and how that's supposed to work. And that code provision was adopted first in 2001. And it was an attempt at the time to give direction to the city of where to post all policies that are impacting the city, because at the time there were certain policies that were adopted that were in a filing cabinet and weren't available to the public to see. And there was an idea that we need to make those available to the public in a place where they can find them. But there was also a question about, well, how do we know what's important or not to be publicly available, and what is something that just isn't that important. So when that was passed, it created essentially a labeling system that council would put a label on a resolution and call it binding city policy. If it received that label, then it would go in the Portland policy documents and be available for the public. If it did not receive that label, then it wasn't required to be put in that Portland policy documents repository. Fast forward 2.5 decades, and I'll just tell you, as I sit here today, that labeling process has not always been consistent. There are some things that probably have that label that don't need it. More importantly, there's probably some things that should have that label that don't have that label. And that can create some confusion about, is this binding? Is it not binding? Should it have been binding? What's the legal effect of that? And where that comes to our office often is, let's say there's a resolution that was passed by council and it does not have that label as being binding city policy. And there's a question of, well, what do you do with that? Can we just ignore that? And usually the advice is you could ignore it at your peril, because council has said this is something that they're interested in, but the label's not on it. On the other side of it is you can have a resolution that identifies something as being binding city policy, but it's not adhered to. And then the question is, well, how do you enforce that? And usually the answer in both of those instances is council, it's up to council to bring that to people's attention and ask them to abide by it. So this has been a problem for a long time, this kind of mislabeling and non-labeling. And so when I saw this in the handbook that it drew attention to this issue, I suggested to Craig the best thing to do would be to remove that from the handbook and instead have a conversation with council to both daylight this issue that we're having and suggest a way forward now that we're in this new form of government and a new council under a new charter. And I think the best way forward in an ideal future state is to really follow the tools and structure that's laid out in the new charter. And by that I mean the new charter now explicitly says city code is the set of laws adopted by council through its legislative authority. So if you want to make laws, put it in the city code. Very clear that those are the laws of the city of Portland. Those are binding. If it's in the code, you've got to follow it. Similarly, the new charter gives the city administrator the authority to adopt administrative rules to implement that code. And we have a whole code section 1.05 that lists the process for the administrator to make administrative rules. So under the new charter, it gives this new council, a new form of government, an opportunity to use the city code to make laws. The administrator can adopt administrative rules to implement those laws. The administrative rules have to be consistent with the code passed by council. And if the council is unhappy with those administrative rules that are based on the code, council can change the code. And then the administrator can adjust the administrative rules to account for it. And in that way, you have a clear set of law in code. You have a clear set of administrative rules that are adopted by the administrator. Both of those sets of authority are available to the public, and you don't have to worry anymore about the Portland Policy Document Repository and whether something has a correct label or not. It should be clear whether it's in the code or in the rule, the source of the authority. So it really is an opportunity for this new council and this new form of government to put this kind of mislabeling problem in our past and move forward with a very clear code and administrative rules.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor. Are there any objections to this friendly amendment from our city attorney? Okay, the friendly amendment is welcomed and adopted. And for Koyama Lane 2, the amendment is to add a sentence clarifying that the section on council committee assignments will be revised to reflect committees as they change. That also came from the city attorney's office. Is that correct? Is that friendly amendment?
We used to receive that feedback just as a point of clarification from several offices, and as a result, we suggested that amendment.
Okay, great, thank you. Is there any objection to that friendly amendment? Okay. Council President, are you in the queue to speak to an amendment or to the underlying?
I have two questions
resolution?
based on the conversation with Robert Taylor.
Okay, yeah, go right ahead.
Thank you. The first is for you actually, Chair. You asked if there were any concerns with the piece that Mr. Taylor described, which I think is a small portion of Koyama Lane 1, but there are other pieces of Koyama Lane 1. I assume when you said without objection to that piece, you were not talking about all of Koyama Lane 1, but just the portions on page 34. But I want to clarify what we just amended here.
That's correct, right? We just adopted. You're asking if we voted?
Well, you asked if we could accept without a vote as a
friendly amendment.
the portions that Mr. Taylor discussed, which was not all of Koyama Lane 1. It was just, I believe, page 34.
Correct,
on
yeah.
Koyama Lane 1.
We have to vote on Koyama Lane 1.
So that's a change to Koyama Lane 1.
Correct. So a friendly amendment to Koyama Lane 1.
To remove that section rather than say council could work with the attorney to update it.
I'm looking to Craig for some support.
I'm not clear on what the question was that we were.
I think you could do it either way. You could leave the discussion of binding and non-binding in the handbook with a note that you need to work with the attorney about it. Or you could just strike that whole section from the handbook, and you as the governance committee can work with us to implement these new changes. My concern is if you're putting it in the handbook, you're putting too much emphasis on something that I kind of think is a mess, which is the binding versus non-binding setup.
And I think the intent here, as we've said, this document is not intended to introduce new policy or change policy. And given that this exists in city code currently, and councilors would need to vote to take it out of code, the reason why we worded it that council could work with the city attorney to update it was with the purpose of trying to not change city policy through this document.
So I just want to clarify that nothing that we're doing here would prevent council from creating policy, because council does sometimes outside of code through resolution create policy that we hold ourselves to that binds us but does not bind the administration. I want to make sure that nothing we're doing here would affect our ability to do that.
No, it wouldn't. But I'll give you an example where council has passed a resolution this year that governs itself. That resolution is not labeled as binding city policy. Maybe it should have, maybe it didn't, but I think that, to me, that's an example of where I worry that we put too much emphasis on the label attached to something rather than the substance of what it really is.
Thank you.
Anything further?
I do want to say something else before we pass this, but I think you're trying to get us to voting on amendments right now, correct?
Yes. So I would like to move Koyama Lane 1.
Second.
And now we can move into discussion on Koyama Lane 1. Looks like we're ready for a vote. Clerk, can you please call the roll on Koyama Lane 1?
Dunphy.
Aye.
Pirtle-Guinea.
Aye.
Ryan. Koyama Lane.
Aye.
With 3 ayes, the motion carries.
I would like to move Koyama Lane 2.
Second.
And we can have discussion if needed. Otherwise, we can call the roll. Diego, can you please call the roll?
Dunphy.
Aye.
Pirtle-Guinea.
Aye.
Koyama Lane.
Aye.
With 3 ayes and 2 absent, the amendment is approved.
And I apologize, I should have actually checked in. Diego, do we have any public testimony? And yeah, go ahead.
We have 1 individual signed up, Edith Gillis. Edith is joining us online in a couple seconds here.
Thank you for your patience, Edith. I know it's been a long meeting. We have a hard stop at 4:45, but we will hear you first. Thank you.
Edith, if you can hear us, you're welcome to unmute when you're ready.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. I am Edith Gillis, and I strongly support the creation of a Portland City Council governance handbook. We need that in general. But what I want you to additionally do is require in the handbook and have it require every city decision maker and every official report to document and publish how decisions or proposals meet accountability, transparency, and alignment with your stated values. Portland's stated core values are transparency, communication, collaboration, fiscal responsibility, racial justice, and equity. And these must be active criteria, not aspirational statements. Your declared emergencies are housing, climate justice and resilience, regenerative economy and food security, and public safety infrastructure. These must guide every choice on policy, budget, administration, and enforcement within the legislative, the administrative, executive, and the judicial branches of city government. To make this handbook and its implementation truly effective, I want you to have each council agenda item, each policy decision, each administrative report and decision include a publicly available evaluation grid with these values and priorities, for example, as the columns, and the items to decide in rows. So for example, with climate resilience, each councilor, the mayor, the city administrator, department heads, and reports should score on a 0 to 5 scale how well it meets climate justice, how their decisions or proposals meet each core value and emergency priority. Racial justice, for example, with narrative justification and links to prior ordinances, budgets, or relevant data. So when you do make decisions, you go back to what are the core values, what is the requirement of city government, and what are the priorities and emergencies you state. Now, this isn't theoretical. In 2020, the council approved $30 million for a private management, whites, out of state, of 2 golf courses after the city had already paid for the land and the maintenance, the management, the golf instruction, the sales, the kitchen custodial staff, marketing, management, all was already paid for. But now we gave $30 million to these outsiders, these whites, where the parks and the schools were closed, disproportionately impacting children of color and low-income families. That decision contradicted every stated value and priority, and it could have prevented with transparent scoring and accountability. As a result of it, we were robbed $30 million from what could have provided housing or safety. Requiring and publishing these evaluations would prevent waste, align actions with public promises, and earn Portlanders' trust. Without this trust, for example, in the handbook and in requirements being a document of procedures rather than a tool for accountability, equity, and meaningful public oversight. If we don't have this trust, we're not going to have the investments, we're not going to have the tax paying, we're not going to have volunteering, we're not going to have the cooperation that we're going to need when we have the emergencies in front of us. So please ensure the governance handbook is more than words and require values, priorities, decision-making grid. With
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for being with us. Okay.
That concludes testimony.
Thank you so much. We just have a few minutes to see how we can discuss the underlying resolution. Council President.
Thank you very much, Chair. I just want to start by saying that I actually love the idea that Edith just put forward. We have disclosures on all of our ordinances and resolutions already, and while I know it is long and cumbersome, I'm very interested in looking at whether we should include disclosures about how each item impacts our stated city core priorities. So I appreciate that testimony. I did receive back just over the weekend, so unfortunately I was not able to bring something that we could dig into today, some technical pieces that we may want to address. For example, the language around executive sessions notes that the clerk oversees those, but the clerk, other than scheduling, is not usually involved. There are some areas in the handbook that talk about different types of items brought to council, but it doesn't include a note to ordinances that don't create code. For example, there are some land use items that we pass by ordinance, but they don't actually go into code. And I think we are not fully technically accurate everywhere. So I would like to reserve the space to bring forward some of those technical changes when this comes to full council. But I understand that we are trying to move quickly today, and I know, Vice Chair, that you have an interest in getting this done. I do want to thank, while I have the floor, you and your team for all of the work on this. I know that Aubrey and Craig have both put many hours into this, and you have as well. At the beginning of the year, we talked about the importance of having a place where we can lay out our policies for how we govern ourselves. I hope that in the future, this handbook is not just a relisting of what is in code, but also includes policies that we have passed through ordinance, those binding, or rather not ordinance, but resolution, those binding resolutions that we hold ourselves to, and that we can really flesh this out to be a place that we look to, not just that other people look to say, how does council work, but that we look to govern how we do our work. And I hope that over the coming years we can get there, and just want to express my gratitude to you and your team for taking on the first iteration of this work.
Thank you. We look forward to hearing your feedback and making this as strong as it can be. I am going to move resolution, unless there's someone else in the queue, document number 2025-493 be sent to the full council with a recommendation it be adopted.
Second.
Is there any discussion? All right, will the clerk please call the roll?
Dunphy.
Aye.
Purtle Guinea.
Aye.
Koyama Lane.
Thank you so much, Aubrey and Craig, for all of your hard work. Aye.
With 3 ayes and 2 absent votes, the motion carries.
All right. Thank you, folks. Sorry we went over. Our next meeting is scheduled for Monday, January 12th. I will adjourn this meeting of the Governance Committee. I could say a lot more and give you more thanks, but I want to make sure we don't take any more time. Thank you.